Have you ever felt like life is just this constant series of choices where every decision sends you down a totally different path? Well, the ancient book of Proverbs, especially chapter 14, really digs into this idea. And it's not just a bunch of dusty old sayings. It's more like a practical guide. It lays out two completely different ways of living, wisdom versus folly, and gets real about the consequences of each. So let's dive in and unpack this amazing map of human character together.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the big, fundamental choice, building with wisdom or destroying with folly. Then, we'll see how that choice plays out in our speech and our actions. And finally, we'll get to the bottom line, where these two paths actually end up.
Right out of the gate, this chapter gets straight to its main point. It paints this picture of life as a kind of construction project. The question is, are you building something that's going to last, or are you the one tearing it all down? This is the core choice that sets the stage for everything else we're going to talk about.
And boom, verse 1 pretty much sums up the entire chapter. It's like the thesis statement. And notice the active words here. Wisdom isn't passive, it's a constructive force. It builds. And folly, it's not just about being unaware, it's an actively destructive thing. It tears things down with her own hands. Okay, so what are we really talking about when we say wisdom and folly? Well, wisdom here isn't about being some kind of genius. It's about being prudent, about actually giving thought to your steps. It's all about awareness. Folly, on the other hand, is this messy mix of deception, recklessness, and just being hot-headed. It's a total lack of self-control.
So how does this choice actually show up in our day-to-day lives? The chapter immediately points to our words. According to Proverbs, what comes out of your mouth is a pretty clear sign of what's really going on inside you and which path you're walking on.
And check out the difference in purpose here. For the wise, speech is a tool for protection. It's careful, it's controlled. But for the fool, the mouth is more like a weapon, just lashing out because of pride. See the difference? One builds safety, and the other just creates chaos.
And the stakes get even higher when it comes to just telling the truth. The text says that an honest witness literally saves lives. That's huge. Truth has the power to create safety and justice. But a false witness, they pour out lies, which makes you think of this nonstop destructive flood of deceit. The message is pretty clear. Our words can have life or death consequences.
All right, so we've talked about how our words reflect our path. Now, let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture, the attitudes and actions that really define a person's character every single day. This table really lays it all out side by side. Just look at temper. The wise person, patient, and that leads to understanding. The fool, quick-tempered, which, no surprise, leads to foolish actions. Or look at attitude. The wise have a reverence that helps them avoid evil. The fool, though, feels way too secure, just totally reckless. And this is a big one. The prudent person thinks before they act, while the simple person is gullible. They'll believe anything.
And this stuff isn't just about personality, it translates directly into real-world results. The chapter draws a super sharp line between doing and talking. All hard work brings a profit, it says. Simple, right? You put in the effort, you get results. But mere talk, all that boasting and planning with no action, where does that lead? Straight to poverty.
And get this, the text even connects our internal state to our physical health. This is a wild statement. A heart at peace, that feeling of calm and contentment, is described as life-giving. But envy, it's compared to something that rots the bones. It's this idea that our inner character has these deep physical consequences.
So how does all this character stuff play out when we deal with other people? Well, the wise show their character by being kind to those in need, which is seen as a way of honoring their creator. The wicked, on the other hand, oppress the vulnerable. And this all ties back to knowledge, too. The mocker, who is full of contempt, seeks wisdom but can't find it. But the discerning person, the one who's humble, they find knowledge easily.
We've seen the choices, the speech, the actions, and it all leads to the most important question of all, right? After a lifetime of walking down one of these paths, what's the final destination? Where does it all end up?
And that brings us to our final section, the ultimate consequences. Because this chapter makes it crystal clear that these paths don't just wander around aimlessly. Nope, they lead to very specific and very different destinations.
The contrast here could not be more dramatic. Remember that building metaphor from the very beginning? Well, here's the payoff. The text says, "The house of the wicked will be destroyed, but the tent of the upright," which sounds way less permanent, right? It will actually flourish. It suggests that a righteous life, even a humble one, creates something that truly lasts and thrives.
This chart just makes it crystal clear. This is the endgame. For the righteous, their path leads to a secure fortress, a place of refuge for them and their families. Even in death, the text says, they find refuge. But for the wicked, the final destination is simply calamity. When trouble hits, they're completely brought down. The point is unmistakable. One path leads to security, the other to total disaster.
So, what are the big takeaways from all this? First, wisdom isn't passive. It's an active process of building and thinking. Second, folly is just as active, but it's a destructive force. Third, it's all those small daily choices, what we say, how we act, that really set our course. And finally, according to this chapter, the end of each path isn't a random guess. It's the inevitable result of the journey we choose.
I want to leave you with what might be the most powerful, maybe even the most haunting verse in the whole chapter. It's this final, sobering warning. And it forces you to ask yourself, are the paths I've chosen in my own life the ones that just seem right, or are they the ones that are right? It's a pretty heavy thought, making us think about the massive difference between what we perceive and what the ultimate reality might actually be.